Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Valeria and this is the Off-Road Range. Today I would like to talk about physical and industrial security, touching on an integrated approach. But firstly, I would like to say that you can find all previous videos by numbering. I talked there about proper nutrition, work-life balance, my plans and strategies, and information security. After watching them, you can understand why today I talk about occupational safety and industrial protection. Today I will cover the following topics: types of safety precaution, factors affecting labor safety, safety requirements for production processes, organization of production processes and workplaces, labor protection requirements for industrial premises, operation of construction machines, equipment and tools, safety requirements when working at height, electrical safety, safety requirements when performing electric welding and gas flame works, flammable liquids and combustible substances, fire safety requirements, requirements for storage various substances and different types of waste. A properly organized labor safety system increases discipline. This leads to saving life and health, protecting the environment, reducing the number of accidents and the number of equipment breakdowns. This includes regular medical examinations, care, familiarization with safe ways to work with equipment and tools, theoretical and practical training in the use of these tools, provision with personal protective equipment, PPE, and other preventive measures. The main factors affecting labor safety and accidents can be considered: field of activity, labor intensity, total accumulated fatigue, technical safety and security features, design of the premises and tools, socio-psychological conditions, working hours, time of day when work is performed, illumination and air conditions, negative impact of hygienic conditions, PPE. Of course, all employees must undergo trainings and internship, courses on safety, fire safety and electrical safety. They must know the rules, use equipment and tools safely, be able to apply actions and take measures in a given situation. For example, temperature increase to critical, liquid spills, equipment breakdowns, and others. And most importantly, they should be able to provide themselves and others with emergency medical care. And ideally, everyone should take paramedic courses. Of course, only those persons who have passed a medical examination, both physical and psychological, are allowed to perform works. The state of health, emotional stability, alcohol or drug intoxication, fatigue are the most dangerous factors affecting occupational safety. PPE is an integral part of work as well. Employees must be provided with overalls, footwear and other PPE in accordance with applicable rules and regulations. Its materials depend on the working conditions to provide safety. Storage, washing, dry cleaning and repairs of PPE should be organized in a proper way. All work carried out has standards, instructions and labor protection requirements. They vary depending on the field of activity. They are divided into different types. They are general labor protection requirements, labor protection requirements before starting work, during work, at the end of work, labor protection requirements in emergency situations, requirements for workplace preparedness. Labor protection requirements before starting work include checking the serviceability of equipment, grounding, alarms, PPE, raw materials. Labor protection requirements at the end of work include cleaning the premises, personal hygiene, disconnecting appliance from the network, disconnecting the network. Labor protection requirements in emergency situations include rules in the event of a fire, and the actions of an ambulance. To ensure safety before starting work, it is necessary to identify dangerous for people zones where dangerous factors operate constantly or from time to time. Protective fences and safety signs should be installed at the boundaries of the dangerous zones. The zones of permanent hazardous production factors and factors themselves include area near buildings under construction, places where materials are moved by cranes or other lifting mechanisms, moving machines and moving parts of equipment, work at height, places near unenclosed height differences of 1 meter or more depending on the work being done and the legislation, increased levels of noise, vibration, humidity in the workplace, air dustiness in the working area, places where accession of maximum permissible concentration of harmful substances are possible, toxic and irritating chemicals, work in deep, closed and hard-to-reach places, for example, wells, mines and pits, earthworks with pathogenic contamination of the soil, work in the security zones of a gas pipeline, an oil pipeline, warehouses with combustible and flammable liquids and substances, places close to uninsulated live parts of electrical installations, work in the security zones of overhead and underground electrical networks, increased voltage in the electrical circuit whose closure can pass through the human body. It cannot be argued that this list of hazards is universal, since it depends on the specifics and order of work as well as its time frame. How to ensure the safety of work, health and lives if there are so many factors? Generally speaking, safety is ensured by maintaining the acceptable level of risk of a dangerous situation. That is the implementation of the following rules. Exclusion of the direct contact of workers with dangerous and harmful production factors, including in emergency situations. Allocation of dangerous zones of work performance. The use of safe production equipment during installation, dismantling, commissioning and operation. Maintaining the working environment within the established sanitary and fire regulations. Storage and transportation of materials, raw materials, waste and spare parts in accordance with safety requirements. Rational placement of equipment, organization of jobs and the labor process. Proper use of raw materials, spare parts and substances so that it doesn't lead to an undesirable risk of hazardous situations within the framework of the established rules. The use of effective means and methods of monitoring the safety of process, the presence of employees in the workplace, the condition of buildings, the operation of production equipment, the serviceability of tools, and the collective and personal protective equipment. Monitoring and logging of measured parameters of dangerous and harmful factors. Compliance with optimal modes of work and rest, production, technological and labor discipline. This point confirms one more time the importance of balance between work and rest, which I talked about in the video number 3. Training of employees, briefing, periodic testing of knowledge and skills in the safe performance of work as well as first aid. The use of personal and collective protective equipment corresponding to harmful and dangerous factors. Production processes shouldn't be accompanied by environmental pollution and the spread of dangerous production factors beyond the hazardous zones, beyond the maximum permissible norms. Let's talk about how workplaces should be organized to be safe. This is important as the main jobs take place there and most of their times people spend time there. Workplaces should be equipped with tables, racks and other equipment depending on the type of work for the safe performance of work and for storage of tools, fixtures and parts. If necessary, workplaces must have fences and protective and safety devices. The presence of unauthorized persons in the workplace is prohibited. Premises must be cleaned regularly, have ventilation and the necessary climatic regime for the duration of the work process. Optimal modes of operation of equipment should be organized. Elimination of contact of workers with production wastes that have a harmful effect on their health should be organized. Special monitoring and logging of exposure levels should be carried out at the workplaces. These exposure levels are air pollution, noise, vibration, electrostatic field trends, and others that have special regulations. They must not exceed acceptable levels. Noise and vibration exist in the structures of equipment, devices built into them, tools, and ongoing processes. They can be reduced with the help of technical measures, acoustic, vibration isolation, and vibration absorbing measures. Of course, the organization of workplaces and the use of PPE are only part of safety measures and requirements. They will not help if the production facilities and production sites where the works take place are not organized properly. Since a lot of my upcoming work is related to construction, it is necessary to talk about the requirements that should apply to construction sites and work during construction. For example, the operation of construction machines, working at height, loading and unloading. It will be useful to everyone who is going to build in the future, because even if you don't participate in the processes yourself, you will be able to determine the professionalism of the hired team based on how they feel about their safety. The necessary warning signs must be installed throughout the entire production and construction area, at all warehouses, at all workplaces. For example, safety measures, hazard class of substances, flammability class, electrical voltage information, fire procedures, and so on. Production area and sanitary facilities must meet the requirements of labor safety. Passages to production areas and workplaces should be clean and tidy, cleared of debris and snow, not cluttered with stored materials and structures. It is necessary to equip in a special way workplaces located at height, on ceilings and roofs. For example, the use of ladders, nets and visors. Construction sites must be lit in accordance with the requirements of the standards, taking into account the maximum allowable voltage. Also, one of the main rules is that you must put on a helmet upon entering the construction area, and a safety harness when working at height, regardless the work you are going to perform. There are many construction vehicles on construction sites. Of course, all of them have to meet different requirements, but there are general rules that apply to all machines. All of them must comply with the requirements and have a certificate for compliance with labor safety requirements. The installation area must be fenced or marked with safety and warning signs. On construction sites, it is necessary to have the route for the movement of vehicles and take into account traffic laws. It is not allowed to leave running machines unattended. Machines should be secured against accidental movement under their own weight. Measures must be taken to prevent them from tipping over or spontaneously displacement under the influence of wind, with the slope of the terrain or the subsidence of the soil. It is necessary to take into account weather conditions, the possibility of shedding, the presence of power lines. Maintenance and repair are only possible after switching off the machine, tools and parts without accidental startup. It is forbidden to operate with the presence of a certain list of faults. It is prohibited to use machines without provided protective devices, interlocks, alarm systems and other means of collective protection of workers. Measures must be taken to protect against electric shock. During construction, works at height present as well. They are classified as works of increased danger. Therefore, their own rules must apply to them in order to avoid work-related injuries. Such works include work at a height of more than 1.2 meters, work at a distance closer than 2 meters from unprotected drops, works above machines, mechanisms and water surfaces, ascent or descent at a height of more than 5 meters with an inclination angle more than 75 degrees. However, these figures are different for different countries and legislations. Be sure to use inventory scaffolding, towers, hoists, construction and facade lifts, suspending scaffolding, cradles. It is necessary to check the reliability of fastening of safety ropes, the presence of fragile surfaces, holes, open hatches and wells, the presence of slippery working surface, violation of the stability of scaffolding, lifts, cradles and so on. It is forbidden to perform work at height at non-stationary workplaces without the use of safety systems and devices. It is not allowed to work at height from boxes, barrels, non-inventory scaffolding, flooring, stairs. It is necessary to disconnect or fence off electrical installations, rotating mechanisms and their elements. It is not allowed to perform work at height with a high wind speed, with ice, during thunderstorms or fog with poor visibility. An integral part of any activity on the site are transport and loading-unloading operations. There are 3 types of loading-unloading operations. Manually, with the help of mechanical devices, winches, jacks, blocks, with the help of machines and mechanisms, cranes, elevators, forklifts, conveyor. General rules and rules to each type of work apply to all of them. General rules include: loading and unloading operations should be carried out in designated places. Loading and unloading operations must be carried out with PPE if necessary. Descents and ascents during winter should be cleared of ice and snow and sprinkled with sand and slag. Transport platforms and entrances should be equipped accordingly. It is forbidden to carry materials on a stretcher upstairs. If necessary, warehouses should be equipped with a lift. Floors and platforms on which loads are moved should be level. Works must be carried out by persons who received training: installers, slingers, riggers, and so on. When working manually, the following rules apply. To lighten the burden, be sure to use assistive devices: wheelbarrows, carts, ropes, slings, exoskeletons. When moving a load, the load must be placed evenly in a stable position, excluding falling when moving. The trolley must be equipped with brakes. When moving down a sloping floor, the worker must be at the end of the cart. The load must not exceed the carrying capacity of the trolley. The load must not exceed the maximum load capacity of the exoskeleton. When lifting, moving, unloading manually, it is prohibited to stand on the load, to catch up and overtake other workers, to push the load, to move gasoline, flammable liquids, alcohol using an open container, to carry bottles with acid and other caustic substances on your back or in your arms. There are rules for the carriage of goods with hazardous substances and acids, for goods in glass containers, for pipes and fitting, for bulky goods and so on. When moving, lowering and lifting cargo and boxes, each box should be inspected beforehand. If the transportation of goods occurs with the help of mechanical devices, then it is necessary to make sure that the mechanisms are working, to make sure that equipment is in good condition: hoists, burtons, removable load handling devices, pliers, belts, slings, and others. When moving down a sloping floor, the worker must be at the end of the cart. The load must not exceed the carrying capacity of the trolley. The load must not exceed the maximum load capacity of the exoskeleton. It is forbidden to lift a load that exceeds the permitted lifting weight of the equipment, to be under the load being lifted and in the path of its movement, to use lifting devices, slings, loops that have cracks, damages, missing or damaged marking tags or braids or other protective elements. If the transportation of goods occurs with the help of machines and loading mechanisms, then it is necessary to position the load evenly and lift it up to ensure even distribution and avoid falling, to observe the established boundaries of power lines and the security zone, to avoid swinging and twisting of the load during lifting, to guide the load with the help of special poles, hooks and braces. When loading, unloading and moving goods with cranes, it is prohibited to lift and move people on the load, to move cargo over people, to leave the load at a height during a break in work, to lift a load covered with ice and snow, with concrete and construction waste and frozen to the ground, to stand under a suspended load and next to the taut cables, to allow the trajectory of the dangling goods to intersect with the trajectory of any of the workers. If loading and unloading operations and transportation of goods take place by road, then the following rules must be observed. To take precautionary measures with sources of fire and high temperature, to control the parameters of the gas-air environment, to prevent fuel leaks and spills, to prevent open release of fuel vapors, to prevent shaking and bumping of cylinders, to fasten the load securely. When transporting explosive and flammable substances, it is prohibited to leave vehicles unattended, to smoke and use open fire, to allow jolts and sudden braking, to transport cylinders with combustible gases without safety cups covering the valves, to transport combustible gases without fixing cylinders with special means, to handle, drag, push, hit, throw, use crowbars when moving, to work in oily clothes with oily, dirty gloves. Vehicles carrying flammable and combustible liquids must be equipped with grounding, primary fire extinguishing equipment and marked in accordance with the degree of danger of the cargo. Transportation of gasoline is allowed only in special containers or metal containers with tightly screwed caps. Containers with acid, alkalis and liquid non-flammable chemicals must be installed vertically and firmly fixed. Vehicle body areas for fastening containers must be smooth, flat, without gaps and with sides to retain liquid in case of leakage or spillage. Places for loading and unloading flammable and combustible materials and substances must be equipped with special devices for safe operation, fire extinguishing equipment and lighting. Of course, construction of facilities, presence of various machines and large equipment, lighting, ventilation requires the presence of electricity. And these are power supplies, uninterruptible power supplies, fuses, a huge number of cables, wires, electrical installations. Therefore, it is necessary to talk about electrical equipment and electrical safety. Life and health of employees and fire safety depend on which. The operation of electrical installations and electrical equipment must be carried out in accordance with the relevant requirements. The following measures must be taken to protect from electric shock: zeroing, grounding, low voltage, potential equalization, isolation, protective shutdown, isolating transforming fences. As collective and individual means of protection apply: warning labels, devices for measuring voltages, dielectric stairs and mats, dielectric suits, gloves, goggles, hats and shoes. All electrical equipment must be reliably protected from water, alkali, acid and other solutions. All cables must be flame redundant. Cable passages between ceilings and walls, power cable connectors must have fire-redundant belts, must be sealed with fire-resistant materials. Metal cases and containers containing flammable liquids and gases must be grounded. It is forbidden to take into operation and, moreover, to start operation with non-working automatic fire extinguishing equipment and without the required fire resistance limit. Electric motors, control devices, control and measuring equipment, wires should be protected against short-circuit currents and overloads. In the case of short circuits and overloads, circuit breakers should be turned off or fuses should blow. If it is necessary to repair electrical appliances, firstly, they should be disconnected from the mains. When using electrical installations and electrical appliances, it is prohibited to use devices that have malfunctions, to operate wires and cables with damaged and lost insulation properties, to use damaged sockets and electrical switches, to wrap lamps with paper, cloth and other materials, to install lamps with a power exceeding the allowable for this type of fixture, to use electrical devices without thermal protection devices, to leave unattended electrical heaters connected to the main, to lay electrical wiring and cable lines in transit through warehouses through fire explosion hazardous zones. The main causes of electric shock are violation of elementary electrical safety standards, operation of defective electrical appliances, careless and inattentive attitude to electrical installations at home and in household plots, repair of electrical appliances and wiring by persons with insufficient qualification. Electricity is colorless and odorless and doesn't manifest itself in the absence of contact. It is impossible to determine the voltage in the wire just by eye. In the case of human contact with a bare conductor under current, two dangerous situations are possible. Firstly, it is mechanical damage to tissues, and secondly, it is an effect on the nervous system. If electric current from an external source passes through human tissues, external electric impulses can be much stronger than internal ones. They will cause erratic convulsive contraction of the muscles that will come into a state of constant tension. It is not possible to relax the muscles and the nerve endings burn out. But the main danger is that if the convulsions of the heart muscles occur, then the person cannot take himself away from the current source, and the current continues until critical damage to health occurs. And if someone is going to help him without protective equipment, then the current will go through his body as well, his muscles will short out as well, and he will become a part of a single chain and won't be able to break away as well. Therefore, for assistance, it is necessary to turn off the current quickly, or if it is not possible, then cut the wire with a tool that have a protective insulation on the handle, or pull away the victim with the help of dry, non-metallic object, for example, a stick, a rope, a board. After that, provide first aid. It is not necessary to touch an open wire or device with faulty insulation to receive an electric shock. I will give an example that can be encountered not in construction but in a domestic situation, either in a field or in a forest. When a wire under voltage falls to the ground, for example, falling from an operating power line, then there is a possibility of so-called step voltage phenomena. Step voltage is the potential difference and amperage that occur between your feet when you walk. Therefore, when seeing a wire lying on the ground, bypass it. Also, the current may flow not only through the ground, but also through the trunk, creating preconditions for danger. Do not come closer than 20 meters. If you are closer than 20 meters, then move away with very small steps so as not to create a large potential difference between your legs. But the safe distance depends on many factors, and the safe distance can be many times greater. Now I would like to move on to another topic. I would like to talk how to perform specialized works and how to use tools properly and safely. Firstly, let's talk about electric welding and gas welding, because they are involved in a large number of works in construction, in the garage and in the workshop. Places of production of electric welding and gas flame works must be freed from combustible and explosive materials and equipment. Floors must be made from non-combustible materials. All hatches, ventilation and other openings in floors, ceilings and walls must be closed with non-combustible materials. The electric welding installation should be grounded during operation. The electrodes used in welding must be factory made. When changing electrodes, their remains should be placed in a special metal box. Soldering and welding of containers from combustible and flammable liquids should be carried out only after removing all residues of these liquids. It is forbidden to work with fire when working with combustible materials, varnishes, adhesives, paints, and so on. For arc welding, it is necessary to use insulated, flexible cables designed and based on the load and duration. Workplaces for open arc welding must be separated from adjacent workplaces and passages by fireproof screens and shields. When working with metal cutting and soldering, the same rules apply. It is forbidden to carry out firework on products freshly painted with combustible paints. To use cloth and gloves with residues of oils, fats, gasoline and other flammable liquids. To allow contact of electrical wires with gas cylinders. To perform work on devices under electrical voltage. Of course, it is also necessary to talk about the basic rules for working with equipment and tools. The tool can be mechanized, electrified, pneumatic, hydraulic, abrasive, with internal combustion agents, with battery installations and others. Maintenance and repair of devices must be carried out in accordance with the requirements of technical documentation and recorded in a log. If there is damage, it is forbidden to use. For example, the presence of chips, cracks, potholes, dents, curvature, grease leaking, vibration, knocking, smoke, damage of the cable, damage of the housing, and so on. Before starting work, during and after work, it is necessary to inspect tools and fixtures. It is necessary to check completeness and serviceability, including casings, cables, and ground circuits, the absence of a short circuit of the winding on the case, and the operability of the protective shutdown device. It is necessary to monitor the tightness of all connections. If necessary, use antifreeze liquid. Tools and fixtures must be used for their intended purposes and the rules must be followed. It is forbidden to pull the cable, to put a load on it, to allow it to cross with electric and gas welding cables. It is forbidden to process wet parts, work standing on an unreliable footing, remove sawdust with your hands, bring connected transformer or frequency converter into containers. The tool should be stored in a dry room equipped with special racks, shelves, drawers that ensure their safety. It is not allowed to work in certain climatic conditions, for example during thunderstorms, rainstorms, low temperature, high wind speeds, and so on. In the presence of battery installations and turbo generators, the premises must be made of acid-resistant materials. Repair and operation must be carried out in the off state and with blocking of moving parts. Heaters must be in good working order and kept at a safe distance. Ventilation must be in good working condition and switched off after the complete removal of hazardous gases. Friends, I ask you to subscribe and turn on notifications about new video on my channel. I also ask you to tell your friends and ask to subscribe if they're interested. I need it in order to get first 10,000 subscribers to have monetization from YouTube. This small financing will allow me to free a few hours a month to make more interesting content for you. And thanks to you, more people will see this useful content. The next topic I would like to talk about is safety and fire rules for flammable and combustible liquids, chemical and poisonous substances. They are used in a large number of jobs and industries. They are present in large quantities in garages, workshops and construction sites. These substances have their own rules for the arrangement and cleaning the premises, heating and ventilation, transportation, storage and interaction with other substances. Flammable and combustible liquids, varnishes, paints, sealants, adhesives must be kept in a fireproof container. Containers must be made of metal or its alloys that do not form sparks and equipped with tight fitting lids. One spark and there might be an explosion. The floor must be made on non-combustible materials that do not form sparks upon impact. Not concrete, but ceramics or other coverings. It is prohibited to store flammable and combustible liquids and other materials in the workplace. For some substances, it is enough to be near a catalyst or active substance and an explosion will occur. Containers for storage and transportation, containers with cleaning materials must be labeled. When moving, filling, it is necessary to provide grounding of equipment, work tables, rubber hoses, reinforced hoses, and so on. It is forbidden to drain waste of flammable and combustible liquids into the city and unintended sewage. Materials of degreasing and cleaning of flammable and combustible liquids must be only cotton, without wool, synthetic, and other materials that accumulate a charge of static electricity. The used cleaning material must be kept at a safe distance from flammable and combustible liquids. They must be removed from the premises at the end of each shift. Separate premises should be provided for storage of lubricants, paints, varnishes and solvents, chemicals, tires and rubber products. Acid batteries must not be stored with alkaline batteries. Storage of paints and varnishes together with acid and alkaline is prohibited. Preparation of paint is not allowed in closed premises. A separate room with windows openings must be allocated for this. Containers with flammable liquids should be protected from solar and other thermal impact. Lighting standards and requirements for the safe distance of light sources from combustible materials must be met. In case of ignition of liquid fuels and combustible materials, it is forbidden to extinguish the flame with water. There are different firefighting requirements for different substances, and that is a separate topic for consideration. For example, lithium is extinguished only with special firefighting extinguishers, and in no case should it be extinguished with water. In premises, under sheds and in open areas for storing vehicles, it is prohibited to carry out blacksmithing, thermal, welding, painting and woodworking works, to wash parts using flammable liquids, to store fuel, oils and fuel containers, to keep vehicles with open fuel tank necks and with oil and fuel leaks, to recharge batteries directly on vehicles, to refuel vehicles and to drain fuel from them. At the places of work with hazardous materials, there should be first aid kits with a set of medicines, including neutralizing solutions. It is necessary to use special footwear, suits, a respirator and other necessary PPE. I will tell you a short story. My friend worked in the laboratory. When he was working with very dangerous substances, they ignited, and at that time no one was around. He was lucky that it was snow outside and that the substance could be extinguished with snow. He ran outside and put out the clothes that were on fire. But not all situations finish like that. I know a case when two people explored the underground part of the city and got into a well with poisonous gas. It all ended very quickly and very sadly for both. Therefore, before working in places where the appearance of poisonous gas is possible, it is necessary to analyze the air environment. When working in capacitive structures, it is necessary to use appropriate PPE, analyze gas-air environment and have ventilation. When descending, it is necessary to use sensors for detecting and concentration for hazardous and combustible substances. When working in trenches, wells, and closed capacities, it is necessary to use gas masks, self-contained breathing apparatus, ropes, safety belts. There is also a schedule of work and time spent in capacities. Upon completion of the works, it is necessary to make sure that no worker, equipment and materials remain inside. Violation of the safety rules will lead to a fire or explosion and endanger people's lives and health. Therefore, the fire safety is a separate large chapter of this video. Fire safety is not just about having a fire extinguisher and a box of sand. Firstly, fire safety should exclude and prevent to the limit the occurrence of a fire and even a spark. Secondly, it includes a set of methods for preventing the spread of fire and rapid fire extinguishing. All materials and substances have such a property as flammability, and all materials and substances have their own classification. This is important in construction, repairing, and many other economic sectors. In my videos about my plans and strategies, you can find them in the corner of the video, I talk about the construction of a house, a garage, a workshop, about repairing a car, organization and running a farm. And all of this must be taken into account. Almost all substances and materials, especially those used in construction, have their own flammability group. There are different types of materials: finishing, roofing, heat and hydro insulation, and others. All substances and materials are divided into solid, liquid, and gases, and they are divided into non-combustible, slow-burning, and combustible. It is easier to deal with non-combustible and slow-burning ones. They are not capable of self-ignition or burning in air and may burn until the source of ignition is removed. However, it doesn't mean that they are completely safe in terms of fire. Such substances may easily become flammable in certain interactions with oxidizing agents, catalysts, with each other, and even with water. Combustible substances have their own diverse, complex fire safety requirements for storage, transportation, disposal, and concentration. The most dangerous are gases and flammable liquids for which one spark is enough and that flare up at a normal summer temperature of 25 degrees. This includes oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, propane, butane, ether, acetone, kerosene, alcohol, compounds with fluorine, chlorine, and others. In addition, many finely divided solid combustible materials become explosive. Therefore, fire extinguishing installations and proper ventilation systems are so important in order to completely get rid of concentration of poisonous and flammable fumes and from small particles if they are formed during the production process. For example, cutting, sawing, grinding. In the places containing flammable and combustible materials, it is prohibited to use open flames and smoking. There are such concepts as the fire triangle and the fire tetrahedron. These are mandatory requirements for both controlled combustion of substances, and the occurrence of an uncontrollable phenomena called a fire, both natural and man-made. There are three components in the triangle of fire: a combustible substance, an oxidizing agent, and heat. The fire tetrahedron includes one more component: a combustion chain reaction. For example, we will get a fire in the forest if we combine dry grass, oxygen that is in the air, and a lighter. Or we don't even need a lighter but high enough temperature, the sun. Under certain conditions, spontaneous combustion of wood is possible from a temperature of 65 degrees. Or we will get an explosion in the garage if we combine the oil from the engine, the oxygen left after welding, and the spark from metal cutting. Or we don't even need a spark because oxygen is so good an oxidizing agent that it doesn't need helpers to ignite. So at least we will get an uncontrollable accidental fire, or what is much worse, an explosion and injuries. This might happen in case of violation of the rules of storage, disposal, operation, the lack of cleanliness in the workplace, tool malfunction, faulty ventilation, gas leakage, the lack of timely checks of reliability, simply carelessness of the employee, and many other factors, including, for example, heat, which increases ignition risks, or a strong wind that brings oxygen and accelerates the spread of flames. Therefore, it is so important to take into account all factors in one complex. There are different types of firefighting and different substances to stop the fire. And if you don't know the rules of firefighting, you can increase the volume of combustion or provoke an explosion. It is necessary to take into account the physiochemical and fire hazardous properties of combustible substances, their behavior to fire extinguishing agencies, the interaction of fire extinguishing agencies with protected equipment, the area of industrial premises and open areas, the climatic conditions of the operation of buildings, adverse impact on personnel, possible violations of the operation of systems. Workplaces that are hazardous in terms of explosion or fire must be equipped with primary fire extinguishing equipment and means of control and prompt notification of a threatening situation. Employees must complete fire safety training. Electrical installations must be explosion-proof. In addition, measures must be taken to prevent the occurrence and accumulation of charges of static electricity. Anti-explosion devices, spark arresters, electrostatic discharges protection systems must be kept in working order. For washing and degreasing of elements and parts, as usual, non-combustible technical detergents and installations should be used. However, many parts, for example, edges in garages, are washed with gasoline, alcohol or acetone, so special fume hoods must be used to ensure safety. It is necessary to comply with the required amount of fire extinguishing agents in accordance with the requirements of technical specifications. These are fire extinguishing, water, sand, fabrics, felt, wool, asbestos, and others. Accounting for presence and status checks should be kept in a log. The territory must be promptly cleared of combustible waste, fallen leaves, containers, and so on. Violations of fire retardant coatings, building structures, cable communications must be eliminated. An integral part of fire safety is automatic fire protection of buildings. This includes automatic alarm devices, smoke and heat fire detectors, automatic fire dampers on air ducts, removal of air from rooms. However, in the event of an emergency response or a false response, removal of air from the premises or using fire extinguishing agencies can lead to critical consequences if people remain in the premises and the doors are blocked. No one ever talks about these cases, and you will not find them in the news, so as not to create panic and not undermine the reputation of the companies where such incidents occurred. You will be able to find out about this by chance if you happen to attend a very serious safety and security training, if you are a very qualified specialist and get into such a training under a non-disclosure agreement. That is an example of hashing up information, and I talk about it in the video of information security, which will be useful for understanding the power of information and the helplessness of an individual. You can find the link to this video in the corner. Therefore, a very good solution is to use sensors that detect sources or conditions similar to the occurrence of a fire. These sensors can be, for example, well-known VESDA. These sensors are widely used in modern industrial facilities, including data centers. But if you have very valuable property or large areas, hangars or garages, then it is possible to use such sensors in everyday life. If you have a need for such a solution and funds for the purchase and installation of equipment, then this will save you nerves and money in the future. VESDA will prevent fire and explosion in advance and a false response of other systems. For example, VESDA can start smoke exhaust system, block air access, increase or stop ventilation, give a signal to stop work or evacuation, and others. However, automatic systems and sensors do not always work 100%. Therefore, it is important to duplicate equipment and monitoring and notification systems. And also, at the beginning of work and at the end of the work, it is necessary to recheck all relays for the required performance. Different countries use different regulations which describe the methods of firefighting and the requirements for substances and equipment registration. If you are interested, you can find this information, for example, on the website of the fire department of your country. It is also important because if you use unregistered substances, then you may be at fault or your insurance may be denied even if you do everything right. As I told, many materials and substances react with each other and many become flammable or poisonous when interacting and should be stored separately and under certain conditions. Therefore, next I will talk about the storage of equipment, materials and chemicals and their disposal. This affects our life and health, the state of the environment and the risks of emergencies such as fires and explosions. Storage of materials should be carried out outside the zones of soil collapse, for example, pits. Materials should be stored on level areas, taking measures against spontaneous displacement, shedding, subsidence, and rolling of stored materials. Storage of goods and materials must be protected from surface water. Storage of goods and lifting mechanisms at the unloading areas is prohibited. Unloaded equipment and materials must be moved to a permanent storage location. Warehouses must have constant ventilation in an explosion-proof design. The concentration of combustible components in the premises should be monitored. Special sensors for measuring concentration of various substances should be located. It is not allowed to operate warehouse with non-working ventilation. Warehouses must be located in the lightning protection zone or have individual lightning protection. Laying transit cables and electrical wires, gas pipelines, steam and water pipelines through the storage facilities is prohibited. Installations and equipment must not interfere with the safe evacuation of people. Layout plan, properties of substances, and measures for extinguishing a fire must be installed. The norms for heating warehouses and distances to heat sources must be observed. Structures and racks inside warehouses should be made, as a rule, from fireproof materials, and wooden ones should be treated with a fire-retardant composition. There must be a certain distance between the racks. If necessary, devices should be provided to limit the free spreading of the liquid. Sites, height thresholds, pits. Warehousing and storage of materials and equipments in warehouses should be carried out in groups, taking into account their fire hazardous physical and chemical properties, the signs of compatibility and uniformity of fire extinguishing agents. All tools, materials, substances, machines, fire extinguishers, cables must be kept in good condition and must be stored in an appropriate climate. Temperature, humidity, heating, ventilation, lighting. There must be a person responsible for the acquisition, storage, repair, readiness for operation, and so on. No interacting hazardous substances should be stored together. All chemical substances should be labeled with the name, safety signs, and properties. Warehouses for chemicals are equipped separately. If necessary, they should be stored in separate premises or compartments of the warehouses with fire barrier or fire resistance. Chemical reagents prone to spontaneous combustion in contact with water, air, combustible substances, or capable of forming explosive mixtures must be stored under conditions that completely exclude the possibility of ignition. Combustible gases must be stored separately from oxidizers and poisonous gases. Also, the ingress of oil particles is not allowed either during transportation or during storage or during operation. Dangerous goods, liquid goods, explosive goods that emit flammable, poisonous, caustic, corrosive vapors or dangerous gases must be packed in accordance with the requirements and standards, in special boxes, containers, hermetically, and, if necessary, with gasket materials. In warehouses for storing acid solutions, ready-made solutions for neutralization should be available. For example, chalk, lime, soda. Warehouses for storing cylinders with combustible gases should be one-story, made from fireproof materials. They should be removed from the place of work and equipped with video surveillance and a fence. Persons in shoes lined with metal nail or horseshoes are not allowed in the warehouses where cylinders with combustible gases are stored. Pipe with valves should be laid through fire burst valves, which will protect against explosion. When storing cylinders in open area, sheds protecting them from direct sunlight and precipitation should be made of non-combustible materials. Measures must be taken to protect cylinders from contact with clothes and materials that have oil residues. Empty containers and cylinders should be kept separately from full containers and cylinders with gases. But the safety measures and requirements for warehouses and storage areas are the same for both empty and filled containers and cylinders. Empty containers, packaging materials and all combustible waste must be removed from the warehouses and from their territory to replace for storage or processing at the end of the working day. It is not allowed to accumulate combustible substances on the site. For example, greasy oily rags, sawdust, shavings, plastic waste. They should be kept in closed metal containers at a safe distance. Since all materials and substances have various wastes, we need to talk about waste storage and disposal. All wastes, according to the degree of exposure to harmful substances on the human body, have their own hazard class. For all production and consumption that have waste, environmental, sanitary, epidemiological and technological standards have been developed that must be adopted for the safety of human life and health, for the protection of the environment and for the conservation of natural resources. It is necessary to carry out separate collection of waste by types and hazard classes and keep records of accumulation, placement and disposal. For example, waste from metalworking, non-ferrous metals, treatment sewage plants, flushing liquids, assembly production waste, waste containing oil products, waste from cutting fluids, solid household waste, cardboard, woods, batteries and so on. Each type of waste have its own storage and disposal procedures in each country. It is strictly forbidden to mix different types of waste. Waste may be temporarily stored in production or auxiliary premises, in a temporary warehouse or in an open area, depending on the type and class of waste. Each container must be marked with the name of the waste. It is necessary to comply with the requirements for timely removal and neutralization of hazardous production waste. The safety rule of waste management and sanitary requirements for accumulation, transportation and neutralization of waste must be also observed. The collection of liquid waste containing all products and waste of flammable and combustible liquids is carried out in metal sealed containers or special plastic barrels installed on a metal pallet to collect accidentally spilled oil. Drainage is carried out with the help of special devices that exclude their spill. It is forbidden to drain waste into general and non-specialized sewage or into open areas of the soil. Various parts and materials are sent for recycling to various specialized organizations. Of course, there are also rules and standards that relate to specific types of construction works, such as earthworks, dismantling of buildings, concrete work, insulation work, roofing work that will take place on the land later. Also, I will carry out maintenance of my territory, all tools and equipment. That is, preparation for seasonal operation, cleaning the territory, caring for green spaces, and so on. But at the moment it is irrelevant. Moreover, it is clear that I talked about the general rules. My task is to convey the indisputability of the integrated application of safety rules and show that there are a number of requirements for absolutely every process. In order to know thoroughly all the safety requirements, it is necessary to study professionally at the university, for example, as an occupational safety engineer. In addition, each country has its own standards and laws, so I cannot talk here about detailed rules and name numbers. But you should remember that safety precautions and every word in it is written in the blood of those who didn't follow them. I will be glad to hear in the comments what difficulties you encountered in construction, car repairing and other works, and how you solved them. Friends, I hope that this information was useful for you. Share this video with your friends. Support me with your likes, comments and other possible support. I will be grateful to you. It was Valeria, the Off-Road Ranch. Wish you all the best and see you soon.